Hey everybody, take two. If you were watching before, that was the silent movie version. Now we've got talkies in our video programming. We're going to start over, and let me welcome you again to the Mayor's Office, Alan Weber, on a Wednesday, talking about right now COVID-19 and about the resurgence that we're seeing of COVID-19 cases around our neighboring states. Arizona, the hospitals are maxing out again. The level of infection is spreading again. We should never doubt that we are dealing with a global pandemic and a kind of a virus that the doctors, the public health authorities are having a really hard time pinning down. Apparently, it has the ability to change and mutate rapidly. It takes different attacks, angles of attack into the human body as it morphs and adapts. And so when we think we're doing well, all it takes is a little bit of overconfidence, losing focus, stopping doing the things that kept us safe, and COVID-19 is back. It's back in other parts of America, and I'm here to say we have to be careful in Santa Fe. We've been doing very well, and now we're reopening, and the danger is, as happened in other states, as they reopened, the caseload and the spread began to grow rapidly. So do the things we were doing before. Practice social distancing. Use hand sanitizer. I keep mine right here in the mayor's office so I can just easily squeeze a little bit off into my hands and take care of hand sanitizer. Make sure that when you go out, wear a mask. It is an order that the governor has put out. We're voting on a mask ordinance tonight for Santa Fe for a couple of reasons. Number one is to reinforce the message that wearing a simple cloth mask protects you from me when I wear it. My wearing this mask protects you. When you wear one in public, you protect me. It's an act of respect, a generosity. It doesn't have to be a medical mask, an I-95. A simple cloth covering reduces the spray of particles. We've heard this now from public health officials at the national level. We've heard it at the state level. It's a very simple matter of caring enough about the people you're around to protect them. When they wear a mask, they protect you. Practice social distancing, use hand sanitizers, continue to wash our hands regularly throughout the day. If we let down our guard against COVID-19, we're going to see a big spike in the number of people who are infected, and then we'll be back closing our city, closing our state down as the governor did several months ago. It paid dividends. It meant that we did not have the kind of incredible rate of infection that we've seen in other parts of America, with the exception of the northwest corner in particular, where we really saw a significant and major problem facing our Native American brothers and sisters. They've borne the brunt. In other parts of America, the African American community has been unfairly and disproportionately targeted as COVID-19 victims. And it's another area where we have to think about equity and fairness and equal treatment and equal health care, good nutrition. All those things weigh in. But right now, in order to stop the spread of COVID-19, we've got to do the safe practices that we were all drilled on months ago. So we're opening up. We're seeing tourists return. We're seeing our hotels begin to get more people staying there. They're practicing COVID-safe practices. The governor and her team put out a book of COVID-safe practices by industry sector. And when we follow those, we'll be able to be safe, open, and together. That's the Santa Fe promise. Safe lets us open. We do it together. So please pay attention. If you see somebody who's not practicing COVID-safe practices, politely suggest that it's the smart thing to do. If we go back into another 2-month stay-at-home order, all the progress we've made to rebuild the economy, to bring people back to work, to give folks a living again, a job, that goes by the wayside. So please pay attention, support COVID-safe practices, do social distancing, do hand washing, do use sanitizer, do wear a simple face covering. Could be a bandana, could be a thing that you pull up from below that's a kind of a mask covering. Could even have an Oakland Raiders emblem on it, like the one my friend Joe is sporting today. Joe does all the videos for the city, and he does COVID-safe practices. He's out a lot. He's got a camera. He's got his smartphone. He's interacting with a lot of people. He's washing his hands. He's doing social distancing. He's wearing a mask, a face covering, and he keeps other people safe by the way he does his job. Tonight, City Council meeting starts at 5. There's an executive session in the middle. Sometimes those run a little long, so sometimes the 7 o'clock session doesn't start smack dab at 7. You can find this on the city website. It's a YouTube channel too. You can probably catch it a number of different ways if you want to listen on the radio. If you want to tune in and be informed about the issues that City Council is dealing with, please be present tonight. 5 is the afternoon session. There'll be an executive session where Council will be sitting down on our Zoom call, meeting with the City Attorney to talk about a variety of issues. We'll then come back, and then there'll be an evening session. I want to highlight something really good that you all should know about that's coming up this weekend, and that is the Fiesta Council sponsoring Summer Food Drive. They got a gorgeous poster. They're doing good work in the community, even though Fiesta this year, like all of our other traditional summer activities, is changing substantially to focus on the core religious traditions. They're still doing their good community work. Okay. Just so you know, from 9 to noon at 1125 Seiler Road is the Summer Food Drive, benefiting senior citizens of Santa Fe who receive a weekly bag of groceries. Bring cans of tuna, oranges, pears, 1-pound bags of beans, rice, or coffee, instant oatmeal, cream of wheat, non-perishable food items. Feel free to contribute. It goes from 9 a.m. till noon, 1125 Seiler Road, Fiesta Council sponsored Summer Food Drive. Bring a bag of groceries, help some senior citizens. It's part of being in Santa Fe. It's who we are. And a big thank you to Fiesta Council for doing that. Obviously, a big issue that I need to spend a little bit of time talking with you about is what's going on across America with the Black Lives Matters movement. Black Lives Matter is now a national conversation. Mr. Floyd's funeral was yesterday. A national and international outpouring of outrage at his murder in Minneapolis, and also a reminder that what happened to Mr. Floyd has happened far too often in decades or even centuries of discrimination and prejudice, bias, racism in America. And now we are all facing a moment of truth. Our country and our city, our state are being called to account about how we treat people of color across America. It's a police issue, first and foremost, because police are charged with taking care of us. They're charged with being our guardians, but far too often in America, police officers have unfortunately not lived up to that code of ethics. And so here in Santa Fe, we've begun the process of reviewing our use of force policies and making clear what they are, putting them out so people in the community can review them and know what they are and discuss them. Do you believe they are appropriate? Do you believe they are guiding our police department in the right way? Today, there was an article in the newspaper that our Attorney General, Hector Balderas, is promoting legislation in the upcoming special session that will address use of force issues. Two in particular. One is banning any kind of chokehold, the kind of throat or neck related attacks or holds that have killed people, often black men, at the hands of police. Second is wearing some sort of a body cam so that whatever encounter is taking place, there's a record of it, a video record that can be reviewed, and then evidence will be available to show folks what actually happened. What we've done over the last week or so, what I've done is to ask the Santa Fe Police Department to respond to two different calls for self-assessment. One put out by President Obama called 8 Can't Wait. A second put out by former HUD Secretary Julian Castro with a more comprehensive review of what police reform might look like. And I thought what I would do today is briefly tell you what the 8 Can't Wait response from our Santa Fe Police Department is. It is a public document, as is the response to Secretary Castro. Both are now being circulated to members of the City Council and to anybody in the community who wants to read them. So let me quickly tell you what our Santa Fe Police Department use of force policies are with regard to the 8 Can't Wait list. So first, the essence of the use of force policy. Lethal force. This is what we teach, what our police department teaches our police officers. Lethal force is only to be used in defense of your life or the life of another if they are facing an immediate threat of being killed or seriously injured. Any force that is used by an officer must be in proportion to the threat. That is an overarching definition of how force by a Santa Fe police officer should be employed when it is needed, only to the extent that it is in proportion to the threat that is being posed. Now, the 8 Can't Wait questions were 8 in number. The first is, does your community policing program ban chokeholds and strangleholds? The Santa Fe Police Department policy says chokeholds or any kind of throat or neck restraint are not permitted for custody and control while an officer is making an arrest. Not permitted while an officer is making an arrest. Duty to intervene. Officers have an affirmative duty to intervene where they witness another officer using excessive or unreasonable force in any situation. Now let me pause for 1 second after those first two items. Those are the two critical items that led to the murder of George Floyd. First was a neck attack, a knee to the neck for more than 8 minutes that led to his death. The second were 3 officers in Minneapolis standing and not intervening when they saw this abuse of force, this blatant police brutality taking the life of an innocent man. Ban chokeholds and strangleholds and have a duty to intervene. Both of those are in our use of force policy for the Santa Fe Police Department. A third is required de-escalation. Santa Fe police officers are trained in crisis intervention and directed to use de-escalation techniques. There was an article in the paper about a domestic dispute just yesterday that went sideways. The husband in the situation went back into the house to begin racking bullets into his gun. Wife and family fled, and the police were summoned. The crisis intervention unit was summoned. This turned into a conversation rather than a confrontation. And after a period of time, the young man calmed down. No charges were pressed, and the wife and kids were fine. And ultimately, they went to court to get a restraining order to protect them. But the situation was resolved because of de-escalation on the part of the crisis intervention team. And all of our officers are trained in de-escalation. Number 4, require warning before shooting. Officers are required to provide verbal warnings prior to using deadly force unless doing so would endanger themselves or other innocent bystanders. So in a situation where they are approaching an individual who needs to be talked down, they'll identify themselves as police officers. They'll indicate that they are asking that individual to show their hands, demonstrate they're not a threat. The only time there would be a use of the weapon would be if by waiting, they would, by not warning, they would endanger themselves or other innocent bystanders. Requires officers to exhaust all alternatives before shooting. Santa Fe Police Department officers are trained to use the lowest amount of force possible to resolve any and all situations. That goes back to what I said at the beginning. Any force that is used by an officer must be in proportion to the threat. If it is a low-level interaction, all of the interactions should be low-level in terms of the use of force policy. Requires the use of force continuum. Excuse me. Officers are instructed to evaluate an array of reasonable options and to use the option that will cause the least injury while resolving a situation. So again, bring it down, don't take it up. Ban shooting at moving vehicles. This is a problem in cities across America. There'll be a low-level criminal complaint. The individual who's been identified will flee in the car, and all too often police officers open fire on the car, potentially harming innocent bystanders, certainly over-escalating the situation. The Santa Fe use of force policy says officers are directed not to shoot at moving vehicles. The exceptions are where the occupant of the vehicle is intentionally driving the vehicle into the officer or an innocent bystander, or using some other form of lethal force and no other reasonable alternative is available. But the overarching policy is do not shoot at moving vehicles. And finally, item number 8, require comprehensive reporting. Officers wear body-worn cameras and are required to follow comprehensive reporting guidelines whenever there is an incident. So our officers are already wearing the kind of body-worn cameras that our Attorney General is calling for, and they are required to have them on and to report whenever there is an incident. Now that's the use of force policy. That is, I think, a very good use of force policy. And now my job as mayor is to listen to you tell me what your experience is with our police department, with our public safety personnel. How do you feel about the Santa Fe situation? Do you feel safe? Do you feel well looked after? Do you feel there are guardians, or do you feel there are people who have a military mindset when you are out in the city. This is a conversation that is important right now. Not so much for me to do the talking, but to do the listening. I need to know what your experiences are. I have gone, since becoming mayor, on a number of ride-alongs with our Santa Fe Police Department. And I can tell you what I've seen from those ride-alongs. But more important than that is for you to tell me what you've experienced. Whether it's a good experience, we had several letters in the newspaper recently about exemplary behavior by our police officers. Those go on every day. But I also need to be able to hear from you things that you think aren't so exemplary or probably aren't as good as they could be. There's always room for more training. There's always room for more culture adaptation. There's room in Santa Fe for us to change how we use our police department. I'll give you a very simple example. Since we opened up the Midtown shelter for homeless people in Santa Fe to protect them from COVID-19 and to protect us if they were to have COVID-19, the number of calls for service from our police department involving homeless people at the shelter at Pete's Place has gone from 31 in a month to 6. 31 to 6. That means our officers are not focusing as much on interactions with homeless people who are having issues in the community, and they're focusing more of their time on calls for service for people who need police help. That's a big change. That in itself represents a shift in the way the police use their time and how we use that budget. So the calls to defund the police, in a way, are less about taking money away from the police in some instances and more about using the police to do the things they're really equipped and asked to do to serve and protect. That's the kind of thing I need to hear from you. I had a 90-minute Zoom interaction meeting last night with the Santa Fe chapter of the NAACP. I learned a lot from that experience and that call. We'll be following it up with another one with another group in town that is interested in the ongoing quest for social justice and for policing that serves the community, gives people of color a sense of security and confidence. When it comes to policing, the fundamental fact is it's all based on trust. Everything is about trust. That's what the report that President Obama put out in 2015 said about 21st century policing. The first pillar of policing is trust. You have to believe in your heart that you can trust the Santa Fe Police Department to treat you fairly, honorably, respectfully, and to protect your rights. That's what we're going for in Santa Fe. We want to be a model 21st century police department. And we want the same thing for the fire department. Fire department increasingly is involved with responding to human need, not just fires, but social needs. When there's a call for 911, we don't screen it for whether it's a fire or a person down because they're dealing with a drug issue. We send a fire truck, a police car. We need to send the right people to respond to the right problem. And it may mean more social workers. It may mean a different kind of combination of police, fire, and a social worker in a car rather than a large rig going out to help somebody who is dealing with an immediate need, a behavioral health issue, or a problem in their house. We need to respond in the right way to the right problem with the right people. And that's what we are working on in Santa Fe. So tell me what you're experiencing. Let me know if you want to have a Zoom call like I did last night with the NAACP. I will take my evenings to do it. Frankly, Right now with COVID-19, it's not as good as it could be if we could sit down in a living room or in somebody's home and just chat about your lived experience, and I could get it firsthand. We have to do it through the Zoom calls we're working on right now. But I am eager to hear from you. So please let my office know, send an email to mayor@santafenm.gov. We'll get something on the books. We can have a visit. We can have a conversation. You can give it straight to me, unfiltered, what your experience is. I'm always delighted to hear when our police department, our fire department do things that are heroic. Frankly, the response of our first responders to COVID-19, whether it was police or fire or a combination, has been heroic. Those first responders kept us safe in the first weeks and months of COVID-19, and they continue to expose themselves willingly to the potential of being infected by a COVID-19 interaction. But they also go out and deal with other issues, and I want to hear about the whole range of experiences that you're having with public safety in Santa Fe. That about wraps it up for today. Don't forget, in about 45 minutes, we're going to start a city council meeting through Zoom. You can find it on our City of Santa Fe website, and I will be there. The council will be there. Joe, on the other side of this camera, will be there, making sure that the transmission is on YouTube. I hope you'll tune in. This is your government at work. We are dealing with a lot of issues right now, everything from the potential resurgence of COVID-19, the need to open Santa Fe safely, get people back to work, get businesses back open. We're still dealing with our budget deficit, $100 million projected budget deficit, and obviously, like every city in America, we're coming to terms with issues of racism, justice, social equity, and the future of our city and our country as a place where everyone is equal before the law, where opportunities are equal, and where people are treated fairly and equitably. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching when I wasn't able to be heard, that little silent version. That was an early 1910 version of my reports to you. Now we're back in talkies. But all kidding aside, thanks for being part of this. Right now, our community has to pull together. We have to stand together. We have to work together. We have to take care of each other. We have to demonstrate compassion, patience, a sense of love and understanding for everybody in our community. Thanks again. I'll see you in about 45 minutes. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Please help take care of Santa Fe. We all are in it together. Thank you.